The Alter Rebbe was listening to two of his friends talking. One friend said, if I was the Eibishter, I would be so nice to people that they would all be tzaddikim because it would be just so easy. And the other one said, if I be the Eibishter, I'd be so mean, they'd be so afraid of getting punished, they'd all be tzaddikim. And the Alter Rebbe said, if I would be the Eibishter, I would do exactly what the Eibishter is doing. And it's all right, the Eibishter. You can't divorce them. Okay, girls, our topic is Shavuos. Our topic is Shavuos. It says in Sforim, it says in the Rishonim, that when Yidden left Mitzrayim, they counted the days. When Yidden left Mitzrayim, they counted the days. They counted the days till they get the Torah. Once they got the Torah, they complained that there's too many mitzvahs, too many mitzvahs. It says also in Chazal that when Yidden left Har Sinai, they were very happy. Why? Oh, only 613, not more. You stick a couple more days, we'll have 700 mitzvahs. I mean, you girls don't say for the mitzvahs, right? So yesterday you learned 3 mitzvahs, correct? Or 4 mitzvahs. What? Eisev es benoi. Shiluach hakan as esen aleisase. And kisi adam. Oh, you guys. I had to learn 3 prakim. We didn't even learn 4 mitzvahs. They stretched it out, the whole Machal Sasudas. I hear you. I mean, the Rebbe stretched it out. I don't want to start with the Rebbe. Yeah. But one of the mitzvahs was Shiluach hakan. It's a funny mitzvah, Shiluach hakan. It's a very, very weird mitzvah. You send away the mother bird, we're going to take the chicks. And the halachas are so technical, you have no idea. We have 613 mitzvahs. 613 mitzvahs. Right? It says in the Chazal, the Mishnah. Hashem is a nice guy. He wanted to give us many zchusim. He wanted to make us very pure. So he gave us many mitzvahs. We have 613 mitzvahs. And with the 7 mitzvahs that are Rabbanan, we have 620 mitzvahs. I'm sure you know that that's Begematria Kesed and the whole thing. Mitzvahs come from the Eibishter's Ratzon. I mean, the Chassidus, you know, right? And they counted the days. They counted the days until they will get the Torah. They would count the days they will get the Torah. It's like waiting to become a slave. I mean, that's really what it was. They were waiting to become enslaved. Because Yiddishkeit's a burden, You need proof. Find out what happens to a person who wants to go through Giyur. I don't know if you're familiar with this. I mean, either you yourself are getting tzedek, or your parents are getting tzedek, or you know people, if you're involved in shlichus. When a person wants to go through Giyur, we deliberately become obnoxious. We give him a hard time. We delay and we delay and we delay and we don't keep our promises. People get very upset. I don't understand. You told me, yeah, why are you telling me no? Because Gatus is supposed to be hard. It's designed not to happen. In an ideal world, if the Eibishter wanted you to be a Yid, he would have made you one, So if a person wants to become a Yid, the real justification, according to Chassidus, not according to Halacha, is that they have a Yiddish neshama from before. It says in Svar, it says in the Chidah, but it says in Chassidus, in the Baal Shem Tov's name, that a Goy who becomes a Yid is not called Goy Shenes Gayer, it's called Ger Shenes Gayer. Because if a person becomes Jewish, it's said that he was a Jew before he was Jewish. But then he had a Goyish Guf, he had a Yiddish neshama. So he goes to the mikveh, he's makabel mitzvahs and all the other things, so he becomes a Yid in his guf as well. So when a person wants to go through Yid, they give him a hard time. And the giving him a hard time is a lot of parts. Number one, they just play around with him. They get on his nerves. They just make it hard. They make it difficult. So people quit. Want to help me be Jewish? I won't be Jewish. They push it, make it hard. Number two, they describe to you how hard Yiddishkeit is. Magaloloi mitzvahs kalas, mitzvahs chamuris. A guy wants to become a Yid. You describe to him all of the things that, before, if you drove your car on Shabbos, nothing happened. Now it's a skila. Before you ate on Yom Kippur, nothing happened. Like Yom Kippur, it's a kodesh. So you put the fear of God into him, And then the guy says, that's not worth it. Right? Does anybody know who heard this and said, I don't want to be a Jew? In Chumash. Esav. I would ask you your name, but I don't want to embarrass you. That's good. You're a Mulamedes. Hine Yanoichi Hoylech Lomus, Veloma Zeli B'cheda. I'm going to go and die. Why do we read the B'cheda? What does Rashi say? If I'm going to be a Kohen, B'cheda B'kohen, I'm Hazara Kod of Yumas. I make one mistake, I die. I don't want it. That the kahuna is going to kill me. It's a Chumash Rashi Kindalach. Hine Yanoichi Hoylech Lomus. Esav says, Yankov says, sell me the B'cheda. You can have it with both hands. Why? I don't want to die. You get close to the Eibush, you get into trouble. I don't want it. Why would I want B'cheda? I'd be so close to the Eibush. Why would I want it? So you tell that to a guy. And then, of course, you tell him about anti-Semitism. That Yidnas Chufim et Chufim, Jewish people historically have suffered so much. You know, and you know the way the halacha works. That when Jews are doing well materially, we're not makabel gedim. The Rambam writes that in the times of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, they did not take gedim at all. Which is why, when Shlomo HaMelech married the princesses from other kingdoms, it's described as in marrying goyim. Bas Pare and others. Shlomo HaMelech was Magayer them. Shlomo HaMelech was a frum Yid. But in the times of David and Shlomo, they didn't want to have gear because it was hard to know whether it's sincere or not. I know shluchim in South America where there's no middle class. You know, the rich people are very rich, the poor people are very poor, and usually the Jews are on the rich side of the fence. People marry Jewish for one reason. It's economic. A shiksa marries a Jewish boy, all of a sudden she's got a lot more money. A goy marries a Jewish girl, he's going to have a family with a lot more money. So what kind of gatus is that? Now the halach is, once you go through a gear, it's gear. We don't play around. There's no standards in gear. Either it is or it isn't gear. Okay, but it's a big problem. In those countries, shluchim do not want to do gatus at all. Because most people are going through conversion. I mean, if it's for getting married, it's already a high madrege. But in most cases, if you're getting married, the getting married is for the money. I didn't fall in love with her. I fell in love with the father's money. So I can like her too. If I got to have a gayed. They don't like to do giyad in these places, and even in America, it's that way. So you make it hard. Why? Because it's a lot. And here you're not counting the days. Yidden were counting the days till Har Sinai. The Rebbe has a sikha about yesterday, about the Chodesh Sivan, that Yidden were so desperate to count the days. How could it be that on the Chodesh Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say anything to the Yidden, and the Yidden let him get away with it? The Gemara says that Chodesh Sivan, which was yesterday, Moshe didn't give them any instructions because they were tired. He waited till the next day, which is today. Today is called Yom HaMiyuchas. Are you aware of this? Yom HaMiyuchas. You look in any calendar, it says on the second day of Sivan, Yom HaMiyuchas, the day of our yichus, right? How do you say it in American? I say it in Lubavitchese. The day we all became gesh. Even the Gedim, we're all gesh. What's the proof that we're all gesh? Anybody know what's the proof? Okay, but what's the proof that we're all gesh? Not the psukim. That everybody hates us. That's the proof that we're all gesh, okay? Everybody hates us. So God, so the word that Rebbe says is, Yidden are counting the days to get the Torah. They're going to have so many mitzvahs. Every single part of a Jew's life, the Eibishter mixes into. There's no piece of your life where the Eibishter says, give me a piece of it. Whatever you do, you eat food, he wants a bracha. You put on clothing, there's all kinds of halachas. There's shatnez, there's tznius, there's shachiyanu in certain cases. Everything you do, the Eibishter mixes in to our lives. A goy, a 7 mitzvahs, a b'chaya. And the 7 mitzvahs are so logical, they're so down to earth, they're so practical, they're so... And we counted the days. It's an interesting thing, we counted. Now, you could say the reason they counted the days is because they didn't know how many they were going to get. Maybe if they knew how many they were going to get, they would have counted a little softer. You know, they had less kavod when they made the bracha. But they counted the days for Har Sinai. And the question is why? What is it about Torah that Yidden was so happy to receive? What is it about the Torah that the Jewish people got at Har Sinai and Shavuos that's such a big deal that people can't wait to get it? Can't wait to get it. Does anybody know the answer to that question? There's probably 50 answers, but does anyone know the answer I want you to tell me today, now? Tomorrow I'll change my mind. I'm going to do this again tomorrow with Seminary Aleph. I'll give him a different, tomorrow I'll learn Maimon. Actually, tomorrow I'm talking about Shavuos. So with them I'll give a different answer. But for today, what is the correct answer for today? Purpose, that's a great answer. Purpose. Yiddishkeit gives us a purpose. It's really true. A way to connect to Hashem. A way to connect to Hashem. That's even deeper. Purpose is one thing. Connect to Hashem is another. Actually, the truth is you can argue which is deeper. For us personally, connecting to Hashem is deeper. For doing something for the Eibishter, fulfilling it. But these are very good answers, right? They're very, very good answers. That when we're Yidden, we have a purpose. When we're Yidden, we're connected to the Eibishter. Go ahead. It's who we are. Can't argue with that. That's a Lubavitcher answer. Lubavitcher always wins because this is a Lubavitcher school. This is we can't escape ourselves. Does anybody else have another answer? By the way, everything he said is true. I'm looking for something much simpler, something much more psychological, if you will, something more down to earth, something more balbatish, something that you could explain to a goy, the child even. I'm sorry. What'd you say? Direction. Okay, that's closer to what I want. So she said purpose. She said connection to Hashem. She said this is who we are. She said direction. What did you say? I heard a voice in this neighborhood. Guidance. Okay, that's what she said. Direction. Okay, anybody else? Freedom. That's the one I'm looking for. Now, since when does being a slave with 613 rules feel like freedom?
Because of everything else that we said.
Because of everything else that we said. You hear what she said? How is Yiddishkeit freedom? Because it gives us purpose, it connects us to the Eibishter, and it gives us direction. And whatever word you used. This is all true. Every single thing being said here in this room is al semis. Okay? The truth of the matter is it's very simple. Because we all know it intuitively. But it's not simple at all. It's not simple at all. And I'm going to explain it to you with an example that I always use. Whenever this comes up in class, I use the same example. I had a friend from Olateda. We're in the same class, whatever, he's a little younger than I am. He was a genius. He was a genius in all ways, including the fact that he was completely off his rocker. He was a very interesting person. Once in 2 years I'll get regards from him. He had permission from the Rebbe to go to Juilliard Music School. He was Altaidenik. Okay, I'm telling you, the guy was a genius. He really was extremely, extremely intelligent in a lot of ways. He came to our house and he played the violin, and my father couldn't believe it because he played an instrument like people sing. He had a real chush, very sensitive man. So he told me once that Juilliard Music School is in Manhattan, for those who do not know, those who live in the country called Brooklyn and they're not aware that there's another country called Manhattan. Across the bridge in that other country called Manhattan, there's a musical, it's one of the most famous music schools in the world. To get into Juilliard is very hard. You have to be whatever. You have to be conditioned. I don't know exactly what. I know one thing. I'm not getting into Juilliard. I'm not even trying. I don't even feel bad that I'm not getting into Juilliard. Okay, but he told me that you'll never, ever get a compliment from a teacher in Juilliard Music School. Never. They'll always point out what could be better. Sometimes they'll say, this time it wasn't bad. This time it was not bad. That was terrible. This time it wasn't bad. You need to understand, you're talking about people, boys and girls, men and women, who are practicing their instrument between 6 and 8 hours a day. A day. And they learn music like you learn Taisvis, or like your chassan, the Mirza Hashem Alavai Amen, learns Taisvis. They spend so much time on it. And the professor says, well, this was wrong. Over there you got lazy, and then you ran out of steam. See, he told me that his kids used to jump out the windows, push it. The pressure was so severe. People would push it, commit suicide. The pressure was unbelievable. And, if you would complain, it's not nice, you have to be sensitive, you have to be worried about people's feelings. They would say, the door is right here, no one forced you to come here. Now, this is the simple truth of life. Excellence requires constructive criticism. If you want to do well in anything, you need to be constructively criticized. If a person wants to achieve great things, they have to take on great challenge. One of the greatest challenges of life is being criticized. There's a hayom yom, a little innocent hayom yom. All the hayom yoms are little and innocent, but every one of them is an atomic bomb. Ahuv es habikoides. Does anybody know? Say it loud again. Kihi ta'amitcha al hamakim ha'amiti. How do you know by heart? You know the whole hayom yom by heart, or it's your birthday? I had a girl in Beis Rivkah years ago who knew the hayom yom by heart, cover to cover. You should love constructive criticism because it's going to put you into a place of truth. Now, girls, let's be honest. Who likes criticism? We hate it. Why do we hate our parents? Number one, because they're always telling us what to do. Now, what our parents are telling us what to do is good for us or bad for us? It's actually very good for us. But we become very sensitive. We become particularly sensitive to our parents because our parents, anything they say feels like a needle or like a knife or like I don't know what, like a dagger, because it's our parents. But if we were mature and we were healthier emotionally and we could take the constructive, it's the best thing. It's the best thing. To learn how to be criticized, I know for myself, is one of the hardest things in the world. The psychology of it is, when someone criticizes you, you think it's personal. You know? When someone criticizes you, you think they're criticizing you. They're not criticizing you, they're criticizing what you did. Yesterday I davened in yeshiva with the Bachrim. I don't usually daven with that minyan because it's noisy. And during Musaf, guys were carrying on a conversation like as if it was lunchtime. So I was shying until I finished Musaf. And when I finished Musaf, I asked the Bachrim to leave the room. They were very hurt and very insulted. So it became a shaila from Pekuach Nefesh. I had to bring in the therapist and give him medication and calm him down and make him feel better. And 101 apologies, and they're still upset and they're going to suffer trauma till they're 74 years old. I wish what I just said was funny because it slows us down. I don't know you girls. I'm going to make two statements. I believe are both true. Number one, most of you do not take criticism well. Number two, some of you do take criticism well. And those who do are better for it. If you have the maturity to be criticized, you grow. You're not insulted by the criticism. The criticism makes you grow. Rabbi Yankel Hecht, J.J. Hecht, the great chassid, really, he once fabrengt with us a Shabbos. He came to California, and there was nobody around. He came for a bris, and there was 10 bachrim. So he fabrengt the whole Shabbos with us. It was one of the most memorable Shabbos of my life. J.J. Hecht himself sat in fabrengt with us, and it wasn't like hundreds of people. The few guys sat around him, and he sat a whole Shabbos afternoon in fabrengt. One of the things he told us was that he once said something to the Rebbe. It was a little bit chutzpahdik. And the Rebbe said to him, a chassid doesn't talk this way. So he said to the Rebbe with a straight face, a chassid doesn't talk this way to his Rebbe, but a son talks this way to his father. Azun, and the Rebbe took it from him. Azun, I know from his Einiklach, he had pictures of the Rebbe in every book. He would walk in the 770, the kids are selling pictures. I mean, you guys know what pictures are anymore because everything's on the computer. He just loved the Rebbe. He was a very big chassid, he served the Rebbe. So J.J. Hecht used to speak in 770 at the big Fabrengens. I mean, this is something that, they still make them. But in those days, the big Fabrengens happened when? The Shchedish Kiss was a big Fabrengen, Yitzhak Kiss was a Fabrengen, Yishvat was a Fabrengen. I don't know when else was a Fabrengen. I mean, of course, later on, Chamisha B'Tevis was a Fabrengen. So when they made a big Fabrengen, they'd put out food, the whole shul, tables of food, and there'd be a big stage, either in the back of the shul or in the same place with every Fabrengen, and people would take turns speaking. It was the same speakers at every Fabrengen, the same mashpiyim, the same rabbanim, unless there were guests. And to be very, very honest, most of the people that got up to speak would repeat the same speech every time. 3 or 4 times a year there'd be a big Fabrengen, the same Yidden spoke and they said the same thing. You know why? Because they didn't prepare. It wasn't respectful.
Was there?
No, of course not. In front of the Rebbe. The Rebbe was there. But we were comfortable carrying on. You know what I'm saying? He was there in the kind of way that we carried on. Yankel Hecht always came prepared. J.J. Hecht, every time he spoke, said something original. And I always admired this about him. Yankel Hecht was a great speaker. He spoke, 20 speeches a week. He did not have to prepare a speech in 770. He came prepared. And if you understand the psychology of that, he was showing us respect. Coming into 770, talking to a Nash, and not just saying whatever, was saying to us, I respect you enough. He would go into his archives, he'd find a letter from the Rebbe or something from his past, and he'd bring it to 770 and he'd read it. He'd share it with us. And I so admire that in him. B'derech klal, I do not speak unprepared. I always prepare my talks. And sometimes I prepare an hour, sometimes I prepare 5 minutes, but before I come here, I listen to every week. I look at what I did last week, I look at the questions, and sometimes I forget what I prepare, because I do it early in the morning. But you have to, if you respect your students, you have to be prepared. He always came prepared. And he told such wonderful things. And he didn't repeat the same thing because he would actually prepare. So one of the times he came to 770, he told the following story. It was so personal. He did something. J.J. Hecht. And J.J. Hecht, when he was young, was a young American. He was on the ball, Lebedik Chevman. He wasn't an old chassid from Russia without teeth. So he did something which was a little bit risque. Maybe it wasn't appropriate. I don't know. He didn't say what he did, but he said that for his position, it's a sneaky past. He shouldn't have done it. Whatever it was. And he got a note from the Rebbe, a scathing note. The Rebbe was really unhappy. Now, you need to understand, the Rebbe used to write very forcefully. The Rebbe's style of communication was extremely forceful. You got a note from the Rebbe and you thought the Rebbe was so angry at you, he doesn't talk to you anymore. Another person told me that when he first started to work for the Rebbe, he's mamash a young man, he's a very sensitive person. And 2 or 3 weeks into his job, he got a note from the Rebbe wasn't happy with his work. He was so broken, he wanted to quit. He was so hurt, like he did the worst thing in the world. So he wrote the Rebbe a note, and he actually wrote in his note, Lama yata ketzef, why is the Rebbe angry at me? And the Rebbe wrote back, Lo yata ketzef klal kaposhet, I'm not angry at all. That's how I talk to my employees. If you work for me, I talk straight to you. I don't beat around the bush. I'm not sensitive. One of the people told me that if the Rebbe stopped criticizing, that means the Rebbe wasn't happy. The Rebbe was a very critical boss. But it was never personal. It seemed personal because it was written so tough. But the Rebbe was never personal. He was criticizing what you did, not who you were. Anyway, Yankel Hecht did something like that. And he got a note from the Rebbe, wow. He was very hurt, personally. So he wrote the Rebbe a letter, you listening? That based on what he did, it's clear that he's not ro'y to work for the Rebbe, so he's resigning. I mean, the guy had like 50 jobs. Anytime the Rebbe needed something done, he dumped it on J.J. Hecht. Any problem that came to the Rebbe was on J.J. Hecht. It's not normal how the Rebbe dumped on him. He just gave him extra things to do as if he had nothing else to do with himself. He was a very special person. He was a very big chassid. Anyway, see, and he sent in to the Rebbe all the keys of all the doors, to all the locks, all the doors of every mitzvah that he was doing for the Rebbe. And there were many of them. So the Rebbe gets this note with the keys. An envelope with a note that he's saying, based on what I did, I'm not worthy of working for the Rebbe, and here I'm resigning. The Rebbe took a pencil, the Rebbe wrote with a pencil, ran his hand across the page with such force that he tore the page. He scribbled on the note, I don't have time for Yiddishkeit, sent him back the keys and the note, end of story. He wrote it in Hebrew, I have no time for stupidity, cut it out, and gave him back the keys. Now, when he wrote to the Rebbe that he's quitting, he was being sincere. He wasn't blackmailing the Rebbe, he wasn't daring the Rebbe to fire him. You know, like Rebbe, maybe I'm not such a big chassid, but I'm a good fundraiser, you know, you need me. He wasn't doing that. It was sincere. I'm not fit to serve the Rebbe, you know. It's being close to the Rebbe is not so much fun. You have to understand. If someone came to me tomorrow and said, would you like to be the Rebbe's secretary? The answer is absolutely not. You don't want to be close to the Rebbe. You want to be a chassid. You want to listen to him talk. You want him to tell you what you say, direction. But being close to the Rebbe is like being close to the fire. It's a lot of pressure. It's nish poshet. It's ganz nish poshet. The pressure that the secretaries carried every day of their life could have made your head explode. And it wasn't only because it was hard work. It's because you were near Elokus Mamish. You were so close to Elokus, there was no margin for error. There was no margin for error. You couldn't make any mistakes. Anyway, end of story. 3 months pass. 3 months pass. He went back to his job, he took his keys, the whole thing. Then he had a yechidus for his family, a birthday yechidus. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure, without knowing it for a fact, that Yankel Hecht had an open door by the Rebbe. Rabbi Hecht didn't have to make an appointment. If he needed to talk to the Rebbe, he knocked on the door and he walked in. There were a handful of people that the Rebbe told, just knock on the door and walk in. I mean, no, they were. There were people that the Rebbe told them, du darfst nicht stehen in Tor, in Ochered, you have to wait in line, klappen tirge rein. Yankel Hecht's youngest brother, his name was Shalom, Sidney Hecht, had an open door by the Rebbe and he would use it. He would come to the Rebbe, knock on the door, walk in and talk to the Rebbe. And there were others, Rabbi Leibel Bistritsky, who had such a permission, and there were a few others. I believe Yankel Hecht did not need an appointment. Anytime he wanted, he went into the Rebbe. But this was a family yechidus. It was a very different mood. Because this wasn't business. The Rebbe wasn't talking to him about shlichus. The Rebbe was talking about himself and his wife and his children. It was very warm, it was very loving. So he went in with his Rebbe, he went in with his children, and there was a yechidus. Everybody had yechidus, but I would imagine that Rabbi Hecht, Mustamba, was a little bit longer, was a little bit warmer. The love that the Rebbe had for the Hecht brothers was legendary. But the Rebbe would see any of the Hecht brothers, anytime, he would start to smile. 6 American boys, they were the biggest Lubavitch Chassidim. Galiciana, they weren't Russians, Rahman al-Islam. They had no gesh at all, except for Beis Simon. Yeah, that gesh they had. But the Rebbe would see any of the Hecht brothers, he would smile. One of his grandchildren told me he went in line with his grandfather for dollars because he wanted the smile to carry over to him. The Rebbe would see his grandfather, that big smile. When he walked up to the Rebbe, the smile was gone like it was never there. In a split second, there wasn't even Yoinik min hashmeichel. It was finished. But when the Zayde walked, every time had such a smile. The love that Rebbe had for them was really very special. And they had this yechidus. At the end of the yechidus, the Rebbe brings up the topic. And again, Rabbi Hecht told the story I'm telling you in public. I save the recordings. Whenever people send me these recordings from Rabbi Hecht, I save them because they're really special. And they're not just special because they're instructional. The story about the Zohar, about the Chodesh Kislev getting more years. Rabbi Hecht told the story in 770 publicly. I have a tape of it. He told the story by everybody. Every time he spoke, he came prepared. So he said, the Rebbe says to him in Yiddish, I'll say it in English because I don't have that much time. I don't understand you, the Rebbe says to him. I don't understand you. Du was gedarft sein zufrieden, the Rebbe says to him. You should be so happy. As attended, that's a Yiddish word that you don't even hear anymore. That someone's paying attention to you. What could be better in a person's life that someone who was there to correct him when he steps out of line? Like, why do you get so hurt? I was simply correcting you. He was very hurt because the tone was probably very strong. And what he did was probably also considerably stupid, It wasn't that he said benching and he forgot Yalav Yova, you understand? It was probably a bigger Aveda than that. But the Rebbe said, you should be so happy that there's somebody who looks over your shoulder when you make a mistake, he corrects you. And that's the story, going back to the story of Juilliard. If a person wants to succeed in life, they have to learn how to take constructive criticism. I teach Chassidus. I teach Chassidus professionally. Okay, I have students, I have children, my own kids, and then I have, of course, acquaintances, people that I know casually, who talk to me. People come to me all the time and ask me questions. And B'chlal, I'm an honest person. I'm honest to a fault. Honesty is a terrible policy, but I'm not good at telling a white lie. I'm just not good at it. I've become a little bit gentler over the years. I used to be brutal. I was so honest, I would just hurt people. But if you're going to say something stupid, I'm going to tell you it's stupid. And 20 years ago, I would have said, this is stupid. So imagine you're a boch of 16 years old, and you spent 5 hours learning a maimer, and you figured out pshat in your maimer. You go up to your mashpia and say, I came up with this great idea, and he unrolls the idea, and your mashpia says, stupid. Now that's terribly wrong and insensitive. So what I'm supposed to say? It's interesting, I never thought of it. Maybe the Rebbe Rashab didn't think of it, but how do you, one of the most profound barometers of any person is how honest they can be with their own children. If your parents can be honest with you, they did something very right. A lot of kids cannot take criticism from the parents. They love their parents, the parents love them, but it just hurts too much. You'd go to your mashpia quicker than you go to your own parents. Because your parents, however well-intentioned they are, people say things in ways that if you're particularly sensitive, they're hurtful. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Why? Because our kids would grow if they could take constructive criticism. Our students would grow. I would grow if I could take constructive criticism. I'm not good at it. I'm better than I used to be. But I don't like to be told what's wrong with me. I don't like it at all. And when I was younger, I would become very defensive, like I said to you, because when someone criticized me, I didn't take it a criticism of what I did. I took it personally, that they're saying I'm a bad person, which was never true. That's why Yidden were looking forward to Har Sinai. Torah and mitzvahs was going to make them slaves to Hashem. What happens when you become a slave of Hashem? You have to work very hard. But what happens when you work very hard? You become a superman. That's what happens. You grow up. Torah and mitzvahs is a challenge to each person. The 613 mitzvahs. And this is the rule of Yiddishkeit. Everybody loves some of the mitzvahs. And everybody hates some of the other mitzvahs. And everybody has a group of mitzvahs that they find boring. You know, you make a yawn when you send away the mother bird to take the chicks. All people relate to Yiddishkeit, but not all of it, parts of it. If you're a kind person, you love the mitzvahs of tzedakah. If you're a control freak, you love the mitzvahs of law and order, responsibility and accountability and right and wrong and all the other things, right? And if you're a person who, I don't know what, who likes things to be very pretty, so then you like the parts of Yiddishkeit that are very beautiful. But very few people like all of it. Why? Because there's a part of Yiddishkeit that hurts me. Why does it hurt me? It's against my nature. But the part of Yiddishkeit which is against my nature, the part of Yiddishkeit that hurts me, when I do that part, I grow. The Eibishter came to every single Jew and said, I'm giving all of you 613 mitzvahs, and I'm expecting each of you to do them all. And the Yid says, Eibishter, the first 500, 100%. The next 50, we got to negotiate. The other 63, you got to take them off my list. And around the corner, there's Eibishter, the first 300 mitzvahs, I'm in. The next 300 mitzvahs, I'm b'shum I finished. The last 13, I'll let my wife do them for me. In other words, we all have. Think Yiddishkeit is a challenge. It's a huge challenge. You know, I say this to my students all the time, and this is a conversation that comes up here, right? Why do people fry out? There's a lot of reasons. The number one reason people fry out is because it's psychological reasons, there's emotional reasons. Very, very rarely is a person's reason for frying out theological. You know, they have emunah issues. It happens, but that's not usually the case. Certainly not in our generations. But I ask my students all the time, what's the number one reason people don't learn Torah? Does anybody know the answer to that question? What is the number one reason people don't learn Torah?
It's hard.
Because it's hard. Because it's hard. And if we liked it, we would do it. V'haraya, the boy on the bench next to me is learning it because he's smart. And he's a geek, and he loves to read, so he's learning Torah. One of my students said to me, Rabbi, you and I are exactly the same. You learn Hasidus because you're good at it. I work out because I'm good at it. What's the difference between me and you? You're doing what you're good at, I'm doing it. But you get religious points. I get points, chveis nidvu. You understand? But if you do it, if you embrace it, if you embrace all 630 mitzvahs, even the mitzvahs that are hard for you, like the quote we had the other day, you become a shtickle mensch. You become a shtickle mensch. That's what Yiddishkeit does for us. I think about this a lot. I don't even know why, but this winter I've been thinking about it a whole winter. Why do people hate religion? Yidden and Goyim, they hate religion. Religion's a bad word. It's the R word, you know. It's not even about God. It's about religion. Why do people hate religion? They hate God because God is a nuisance. But why do people hate religion? Jews who used to practice mitzvahs and everybody hate Yiddishkeit, Christians hate Christianity, even some Muslims, Freie Muslim. There's no such thing, by the way, as a Freie Muslim. There's no such thing as a Freie Christian. There's only such a thing as a Freie Jew. You know why? Because the Jew is who you are, not what you do. If you stop being a practicing Christian, you're not a Christian anymore. You're not a reformed Christian. You're just not a Christian. If you stop practicing Islam, you're not a Muslim. You stop practicing Yiddishkeit, you're as Jewish as Avraham Avinu. Why? Because it's not what you do, it's who you are. Why do people hate religion? You know why? I think. Because religion criticizes. Do it this way, you're not allowed to do this, but I want to do it, it feels good, it gives me pleasure. You're not allowed to do it, you're not allowed to do it. Is religion wrong? Do we think religion is wrong when it says don't do this, don't do this, don't do this? We know religion is right. That's why we hate it so much. Because what religion is telling me to do is two things. Number one, good for me. Number two, finish the sentence. Hard for me. If we had an easy time doing mitzvahs, it all be tzaddikim, not because we love God, but because we love ourselves. And the chap of Torah mitzvahs is, Hashem made so many mitzvahs that He found an area for every Jew who will ever live that's going to be hard, that's going to require him or her to stretch themselves, to pull themselves, to make themselves bigger. That's why Yidden are so successful. Now, I usually give you a different answer, but for today, this is what we're saying. Yidden are very hardworking. Not only hardworking in making money. Everybody's hardworking in making money. We're hardworking in our family life. We're hardworking in our parental responsibilities. A guy gets married. Yeah? How much has he invested in his marriage? I'm sure some invest an awful lot. I'm sure. And I'm sure there's Yidden who neglect their wives, neglect their husbands, their marriages fail. But on average, from Yidden are better marriages because they're from. And from says work hard and shalom bayis. Don't say I love my wife if my life meets all my expectations. You work hard on it. You work hard because you're conditioned to hard work. And the same is true with chinuch. How do you have 10 kids and raise them all normal? I'm asking you a question. In America, you have one kid and a poodle is crazy, and the one kid is crazier. One of the shulchan that I know, a rabbi that was in my shul, tells me a story. He raises money for Russian causes. He's been involved in shlichus for 50 years, more. So he raises money for Russian causes, and he met a lot of very rich people. He said he came to a house of a man. The man was then, in the 70s, a multi-millionaire, worth a lot of money. Big mansion. He had one son, one boy. And the kid was literally bouncing off the walls. He was like shikir from candy. I don't know what it was. He was nuts. So he says to this man, you employ 1,200 people, 1,200 workers. They're at your beck and call. Whatever you say they do. You discipline them, you control them, you direct them, you manage them, and they cooperate. Why can't you discipline your own kid? So he said to this shliach, he's a little boy, let him have fun. He's a little boy, let him have fun. And every time he would meet him, which is once every year or so, this conversation would come up, and this was usually the answer. He's still little. And then he became a teenager, and he put in earrings and tattoos and colorful hair, and he became, outwardly cuckoo. And he says to him, why don't you raise your son? He says, he's an adult. He can make decisions for himself. So the shliach says to this man, I've been coming to your house for 10 years. I've asked you this question 5 times. You always said to me, is noch jung, soll sich spielen. He spoke in Yiddish. He's young, let him play. Ist sagst du mir, now you tell me he's an adult. Wie viel Zeit für anzuwischen? How much time is there from the end of he's still young, let him have fun, and he's an adult, let him make decisions for himself? What the correct answer to that question is? 0. So where's chinuch? Toys, vacation, nice clothes. Maybe the threat, if you take drugs, I'm not going to give you the second car because the first car you smashed. Mamish. In other words, he doesn't have a value of chinuch. Chinuch is a religious value. Chinuch is hard, I know. I tell people, my firm belief is that the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, is not raise kids. It's be married. It's very hard to be married to another person, especially since their men and women are so different. It's an amazing thing. Shalom bayis, the greatest thing you'll ever do. Second, chinuch, no question about it. Those are the hardest things you'll ever do. Okay? You do them well because you grew up in a home where your parents did it well. You watched people work very hard. You watch people make mistakes, think about it again, correct it, make mistakes. Yiddishkeit gave us that. Yiddishkeit gave us the idea that we don't only work hard on making money, we work hard on being righteous. Are we righteous? No. But boy, we could be worse. Boy, could we be worse. Yidden left Mitzrayim and understood this. Yidden left Mitzrayim, they were Shaku and Memtes Sharitum. Yidden in Mitzrayim were slaves. Slaves are hefker. Slaves can do anything they want. I've told the story before. It's one of my greatest stories. And I have to say it in Yiddish. If you don't know Yiddish, it's a rachmanis on you. Because it doesn't go over well in English. There was a Jew named Shnei Zalman Rubashov. Shnei Zalman Rubashov. Shnei Zalman Rubashov was a Lubavitcher Chassid. He was real gesh, okay? Not just because of Beis Sivan, but because of Yitzis Kislev. His Beis Sivan is Yom HaMiyuchas. You missed the beginning of this class. It's everybody's gesh. Which of course defeats the whole point. Everybody's gesh and nobody's gesh. I have to be better than somebody. His name was Shnei Zalman. He was named after the Alter Rebbe. He got himself kicked out of Temchat Tmimim at 14 years old for reading Goyish books. The guy was a genius. And he spent a lot of years of his life literally as an apokadis. He didn't believe in God. He was one of the principal thinkers of the secular Zionist movement. He wrote books and books and books and books of kfira. I once saw his books. Years. By the time he passed away, Zalman Shazar, he was 100% frum. The Rebbe was makar of him. He put on film, he ate kosher, he kept Shabbos. He was the president of Israel. He built a shul in Beit HaNasi. In the president's house, the shul, Shazar built it. Shazar became warmer over time. In 1948, he came to America because they were worried about the partition, that there should be, after killing 6 million Jews, to give us a strip of land that was impossible to defend if the Jews would be given. I don't know if you understand what happened when they made Israel a state. They gave us statehood, but they gave us the kind of state that the Arabs could run over by mistake. That we survived 48 is such a mess. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. We didn't have weapons. We won that war with noisemakers. We made a machine that made it sound like a lot of bullets, and the Arabs ran away from the noise. There was no guns, with no bullets, nothing. Noise! Nissim Gloyim. Anyway, I digress. He came to America, Shazar did, and he went into the Frierdiker Rebbe to ask the Frierdiker Rebbe for a bracha that the governments of the world should agree to be state of Israel. And he knew that the Rebbe was anti-Zionist. And the Rebbe surprised him and gave him the bracha. And he said to the Rebbe, you know, you're always against Zionism. And the Rebbe said, Den smol nicht und ich the ja. Then I was against it, now I'm favorite. When he walked to the Frierdiker Rebbe, the first words were, the Frierdiker Rebbe said to him, in Yiddish, Frierdiker Rebbe knew him. The Frierdiker Rebbe was the principal who personally kicked him out of Temchat Tmimim 50 years before. Zalman, was machst du? The Frierdiker Rebbe said to Zalman Shazar, Zalman, how are you? And Zalman said immortal words, mamish, immortal words. Rebbe says, Avda behefkere, aber es ist nicht nichele. In Gemara there's an expression, Avda behefkere nichele. A slave wants to remain a slave. There's a rule in halacha, if I do something that's good for you, do I have to give you notice before? If I find a wallet, I say, I'm picking up this wallet for Miriam. And then I come to Miriam, they say, this wallet is yours, I picked it up for you yesterday. If it's good for you to have that wallet, I can't change my mind once I picked it up, because Zachin la'adam shalei b'fanav. But if I free my slave is not there. Is my slave free or not? The halacha is yeah, but it's so sometimes Amirayim hold no. Why? Because slaves want to remain slaves. Because slaves are totally free. They have no halachas. Goyim have more mitzvahs than avodah. In certain inyanim. A goyish, a free man and woman has certain dinim that are slave. So a slave wants to be free. So he says, the Rebbe says, Avda befkeda, I am so free, and I'm not happy. The Rebbe asked him, how are you? And he said to the Rebbe, I am so free, but I'm not happy. That's why you didn't count the days for Matan Torah. Okay, we had a class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.